Back in 1994, a movie arrived that made every kid in America wish they were the richest child on the planet. Richie Rich became one of the most beloved family films of the decade, but the story behind it is far more fascinating than the mansion, the McDonald's, and the gold mine beneath the estate. Macaulay Culkin was already the biggest child star in Hollywood, fresh off 2 Home Alone smash hits. But stepping into the role of Richie Rich wasn't as simple as it looked. Behind the scenes, the production faced enormous pressure, unexpected casting battles, and a young star quietly burning out under the weight of global fame. And Culkin wasn't the only story. The mansion you see on screen? A real one. The corporate deal behind that private McDonald's? Bigger than most people realize. And the comic book that inspired everything? It spent decades bouncing around Hollywood before finally getting its shot. So let's count down and check out 15 crazy facts about Richie Rich. Number 15. Macaulay Culkin was already burning out at 14. By the time filming began, Culkin was one of the most recognizable faces on the planet. Home Alone made him a superstar in 1990. Home Alone 2 made him even bigger in 1992. But by 1994, the pressure was quietly crushing a teenager who had barely had time to just be a kid. Culkin later admitted he was exhausted by the time Richie Rich came around. He had been working non-stop since childhood with very little say over his own career. Serious tensions were building within his family that would soon spill into public view. Despite all of that, he showed up and delivered. Richie Rich, a kid surrounded by everything except genuine childhood freedom, wasn't entirely unlike his own life. That personal connection gave his performance a subtle emotional layer that went beyond what the script required. Shortly after wrapping, Culkin walked away from Hollywood entirely. He was 14 years old.
Yes, Master Richie! Yes, yes, yes!
Number 14. The comic book spent decades waiting for. Hollywood Richie Rich didn't start as a movie idea. The character first appeared in 1953 inside the pages of Harvey Comics. He was a background character at first, but readers responded immediately. By 1960, Richie had his own dedicated comic series. At his peak, Harvey Comics was publishing more than 50 separate Richie Rich titles simultaneously. Hollywood noticed early, but the path to the screen was messy. For years, the property was optioned, developed, and abandoned by multiple studios. The challenge was always the same. How do you make a kid who has everything into a sympathetic hero? It wasn't until Warner Brothers committed in the early 1990s that writers finally cracked the solution. Give Richie something no amount of money could buy. Give him the threat of losing his family. Suddenly, the richest kid in the world became relatable. Number 13. John Larroquette almost didn't play the villain. Casting the villain. Lawrence Van Doe required someone who could be genuinely threatening while still landing comedy beats. John Larroquette, best known from the television comedy Night Court, was not the obvious first choice. His TV background made some studio executives nervous. They wanted stronger film credentials to anchor the antagonist role. But director Donald Petrie saw exactly what the role needed. Larroquette's ability to play pompous, self-important characters with total conviction was perfect for Van Doe. A villain who truly believed he deserved the rich family fortune was far more interesting than one who was simply evil. Once cast, Larroquette committed completely, playing Van Doe with such wounded entitlement that his eventual defeat felt genuinely satisfying. Number 12. A real mansion played the rich estate. When the production needed a location convincing enough to pass as the most extravagant private home in the world, a soundstage wasn't going to cut it. The solution was Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. Built by George Washington Vanderbilt II and completed in 1895, the Biltmore is the largest privately owned home in the United States, covering nearly 180,000 square feet across 35 bedrooms, 43 bathrooms, and 65 fireplaces. Filming there created its own challenges. The Biltmore is a working tourist destination, so production had to work around its regular schedule, and certain areas were completely off limits. But the results were undeniable. Every sweeping shot of the rich estate carried genuine grandeur because it was genuine grandeur. No constructed set could have replicated that on the same budget. Number 11. Michael McShane nearly stole the entire film. In a movie built around one of the most famous child stars on the planet, it takes something special to make audiences remember a supporting player. Michael McShane, who played the eccentric inventor Professor Keenbean, came dangerously close to doing exactly that. Keenbean was written as a straightforward comedic invention, but McShane took the character somewhere unexpected, playing him as a man of genuine obsessive passion, whose love of invention made every scene crackle with unpredictable energy. Director Donald Petrie gave McShane room to explore, and the actor used every inch of it. Several of Keen Bean's funniest moments came from improvised physical choices made on set. His timing was sharp enough to hold his own against Culkin's natural star power, which was no small achievement. Number 10. The McDonald's scene was a real corporate deal. One of the most memorable images in the film is discovering that the Rich family has their own private McDonald's inside the estate. For kids in 1994, that single detail was the ultimate symbol of unlimited wealth. But it didn't happen by accident. Warner Brothers negotiated a genuine product placement deal with McDonald's that went far beyond a simple logo appearance. McDonald's became an active promotional partner, helping market the film to its enormous customer base while receiving one of the most aspirational brand placements in any family movie of the era. Children who watched Richie Rich and saw that private McDonald's didn't just laugh, they remembered it for decades. That kind of cultural embedding was worth far more to McDonald's than any traditional advertisement.
You have your own McDonald's?
Number 9. Jonathan Hyde played 2 roles in the same film. One of the film's most quietly impressive achievements is something most viewers never notice. Jonathan Hyde, who played the devoted butler Cadbury, also appears as Richard Rich Sr., Richie's father. 2 completely separate characters played by the same actor in the same film. The decision was partly practical and partly creative. Hyde navigated the challenge with impressive precision. Cadbury is restrained and formally warm. Richard Rich Sr. is expansive and openly affectionate. The physical and vocal distinctions Hyde created between the two are convincing enough that casual viewers simply never register the overlap. It's the kind of understated craft that gets overlooked in family films, but adds an unexpected layer of texture to the whole production. Number 8. The unknown kids were cast on purpose. Hollywood logic in 1994 would have suggested surrounding Culkin with recognizable young talent. The studio went in the opposite direction. The kids cast as Richie's neighborhood friends were largely unknown actors without significant prior credits, and that decision turned out to be quietly brilliant. Culkin's fame was so enormous that placing equally recognizable young actors alongside him would have created distractions. Audiences would have been watching the cast instead of the story. The unknown kids also brought genuine reactions to set. Without the weight of public personas, they responded to Culkin naturally, and that authentic energy translated directly to the screen. Number 7. The film was deliberately lighter than the comics. The Richie Rich comics carried a gentle undercurrent of social commentary. Richie's impossible wealth existed in a world that quietly acknowledged inequality, finding humor in the contrast between his extravagance and ordinary life around him. The film softened that contrast significantly. Director Donald Petrie made a conscious decision to lean into warmth and wish fulfillment rather than satire. The Rich family's wealth isn't presented as something complicated. It's pure fantasy, and audiences are invited to enjoy it without irony. That choice was practical as much as artistic. A family film in 1994 needed uncomplicated fun across a wide age range. The result trades the comic's gentle bite for pure escapism, and for its target audience, that was exactly what they came to see. Number 6. The vault scene required weeks of stunt coordination. Building a set that felt genuinely massive while remaining practically filmable was one of the production design team's greatest challenges on the entire shoot. The stunt coordination for the vault sequence involved multiple rehearsal days before cameras ever rolled. Child safety protocols required careful choreography for every moment involving Culkin and the younger cast. Even moments that appear spontaneous and chaotic on screen were broken into precise sequences that could be executed safely and repeatedly. The production stunt team worked closely with Petrie to design action beats that delivered physical spectacle while serving the story's emotional climax. Number 5. Harvey Comics went bankrupt the same year. By the time Richie Rich arrived in theaters in December 1994, the company that created him was already gone. Harvey Comics filed for bankruptcy in 1994, ending 4 decades as one of America's most beloved publishers of children's comics. The irony was almost painful. The richest kid in comics arrived on the biggest screen of his career at the exact moment the company that built him collapsed. Harvey's bankruptcy came after years of declining sales as video games and cable television pulled young audiences away from comic books. The film arrived as a kind of farewell gift from a fictional world quietly disappearing. There's something genuinely poignant about that timing. A movie celebrating unlimited wealth, released at the precise moment the company that owned the character ran out of money. Number 4. Critics were brutal, but audiences showed up. When Richie Rich opened in December 1994, critics were unkind. Reviewers pointed to thin plotting, a predictable villain, and over-reliance on Culkin's star power. The film holds a low score on review aggregators and was widely dismissed as a cynical product designed to squeeze one last payday from a fading child star. The box office told a more complicated story. Richie Rich earned over $40 million domestically, a solid return that reflected genuine audience appetite for exactly what the film delivered. The gap between critical reception and audience response is one of the most interesting things about the movie. In retrospect, critics measured it against ambitions it never claimed to have. Families measured it against the afternoon they spent laughing at a golden mansion and a private McDonald's. By that measure, it succeeded completely. Number 3. Culkin's real life mirrored Richie's story. One of the stranger coincidences surrounding this film is how closely the central emotional conflict echoed what was happening in Culkin's actual life. The movie's core story is about a boy whose greatest fear is losing his family. Despite every material advantage, Richie's world is threatened by forces trying to tear apart the people he loves most. Off-screen, Culkin was living a version of that same anxiety. His parents were in the process of a bitter separation involving legal disputes over control of his considerable earnings. The family unit that had managed his extraordinary career was fracturing, and the boy at the center had very little control over what happened next. Watching his performance with that context in mind, the moments where Richie's composure cracks carry a weight that feels less like acting and more like genuine emotional memory. Number 2. It was one of the last old-school child star films. Richie Rich arrived at a precise cultural crossroads. It was one of the last major family films built entirely around the power of a child star, a model that had defined family entertainment through the late 1980s and early 1990s. Home Alone had established Culkin as the template for that model, and Richie Rich was its final expression. Within a year, Toy Story would arrive and rewrite the rules of what a family film could be. Who it needed to star, how it needed to look, and what kind of story it needed to tell were all about to change permanently. Richie Rich belongs to the last generation of family movies that operated entirely by the old rules, and there's something almost elegiac about watching it today, knowing what was coming. Number 1. The film is a perfect time capsule of 1994. More than anything else, Richie Rich is a snapshot of a very specific cultural moment. Culkin's swan song, Harvey Comics' final hurrah, the old-school family movie formula making one last grand entrance before a new era arrived and changed everything. The film captured something timeless about childhood fantasy, the idea that even unlimited wealth means nothing without the people you love, and wrapped it in the particular warmth and simplicity of early 1990s family entertainment. For everyone who grew up watching it, Richie Rich remains exactly that, a perfect time capsule of what movies felt like before everything changed. Smash that like button if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when we upload another video like this. If you have any recommendations, feel free to let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.